Hello and welcome back. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to learn how to straighten our photos and to crop them. Now, we've already learned how to do that in a previous section when we worked in Adobe Camera Raw, but this time I'm going to show you how to do it directly in Photoshop. So for this lesson, you can either grab this image from the resources folder, or you can grab any one of your own images to practice on. Okay, we can see the horizon is very crooked, and I'm not quite sure what I was doing at the time I shot this, but we need to fix it. So we need to grab our crop tool, which is located here on our tools panel, or we can use the keyboard shortcut, which is the letter C, and there's also additional tools inside here as well. If you click on that, you're going to see those tools here, and we're going to go over one of those in this section as well. Up here in our tool options section, we do have options to choose from for cropping or straightening our image. So once you select the crop tool, you're going to notice this little bounding box around your image. And the quickest and easiest way to straighten your image is to select this little icon right here, which is the straightening tool. Then come to your horizon, click in an area to start, and then drag out a line that follows along the horizon. Once you release your mouse button, Photoshop will then provide a grid with a crop view of what your image is going to look like once you commit that change. Now, sometimes your crop may be much larger and include areas that are outside of the image, and in that case, you're going to have white added to your image. So you may need to come in and click on one of the corners and bring those in to fit inside of the image so that you're not adding unwanted negative space or white space to your image. The thing you want to make sure you do, though, is when you move this crop tool to resize it, you want to hold down your Shift key in order to keep the same crop ratio for your image. I'm going to go ahead and do this corner as well. I'm going to bring that in, and then I can click inside the grid to move my image around to recompose it as needed. So I'm going to place it right about there, and then I can use my return key or my enter key to commit to it, or I can click on this icon, and that's also going to allow us to commit this cropped area to the image. And once you do, the image is recropped. And our horizon is now straight. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and undo that with Command or Control and the letter Z. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag out my crop tool around my image again, and I'm going to show you a different way to straighten your images. So once you have this grid, we're going to bring our mouse cursor to the outer edge of one of the corners, and you're going to see the icon changes to these little arrows. So once you see those two little arrows, that's Photoshop's visual cue to let you know that you can then begin rotating this grid into position. Once you do that, you're going to get additional smaller grids, and then you can use those to align your horizon to. And then you just need to commit that change again, and then Photoshop will crop your image. Okay, now that you know how to crop and straighten your image, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these options up here. So right here we have our ratio options, so we can choose from pre-made ratios. If you want a 4:6 or 8:10 print, or even 5:7, you can select these ratios here, or you can create new ratios and save them for future use. Just give it a name, and you can type in your ratios right here to create that new ratio. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a different image, and I already have the crop tool selected and applied to this image, and now I want to show you something else that will help you with your cropping, and that's this little tool right here. If we click on it, we're going to get a drop down of additional types of grids that we can apply to the grid view when cropping. So rule of thirds is a really popular one, and that one's usually selected by default, but you can choose some of these other types of cropping guides to help you crop your image for best composition. You can also use a keyboard shortcut to cycle through all the different grids to find the one that you need, and that's by selecting the letter O, and then you will then navigate to each one of the different overlays. Then within this settings icon here, you have some different modes for viewing your cropped area. So this is classic mode, and it's just basically showing the outer edges just slightly different versus the newer version. You can also show the cropped area. If you turn that off, it's not going to show the outer part of the image that's being cropped out. So right here we can see an overlay being applied to the image, and this gives you the option to either show it or hide it. You can also adjust it to auto center the preview. Maybe you've zoomed in a little bit and you want to see everything centered within the interface. You can do that with this option right here. This option here will enable the crop overlay based on the opacity setting that you set. So you can make it darker or lighter based on this opacity slider here, or you can choose based on the colors in your foreground color over here, or you can just turn it off altogether if you don't want to see that overlay. So those are just ways to customize how you view the crop grid within your image. Now these other options here affect how the image is cropped, and let me show you how that works. I'm going to go ahead and resize this to fit the image again. So when you click and you begin to rotate your grid, it's possible that you may end up cropping your image in a way that you have no pixels being included in the crop. So what's going to happen is when I hit enter, we have transparency. So when you flatten this image, this area is going to be white. So let's do this again, and let's turn on content aware. So when you turn this on, what Photoshop is going to do is it's going to magically take information from your image and then fill it in so that there's no empty space there. So there you go. Photoshop was able to clone parts of your image and fill in that area so you don't have any white area or empty pixels in that area that's being cropped. The other thing you want to make sure you do is you don't select delete cropped pixels. So let me show you how that works. So right now we have it cropped where the right part of the image is going to be cropped out based on this crop grid. So if we take a look at our thumbnail, when I commit to it, nothing changes. The thumbnail of that image is the same even though I cropped it out. So if I save this as a PSD file, I can come back and I can undo that and get the original image. But if we do the same thing but have delete cropped pixels on, then we hit enter. Not only do we lose the information over here to the right, but also within the thumbnail. So if I undo this, you can see that the thumbnail is changing as well based on that crop. So even if I save this as a PSD file, these pixels are being deleted from the image. So if you want to make sure that your pixels are not being deleted so you can access them again in the future, make sure this is turned off and you save your image as a PSD file. Okay, so that's it for cropping and straightening your images. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about perspective correction.